Gran Turismo has always held an almost mythical place in the pantheon of racing games. Branded as the real driving simulator, from day one the series has tried to replicate the real-life sensations involved in motor racing. On top of that, it has always tried to be more than just a racing simulator, more than just a game. There is a deep appreciation of car culture and the sport of racing in Gran Turismo, a loving passion that drips out of every entry, from its beginnings on the PlayStation 1 to the spin-off on the PlayStation Portable and the latest release on the PlayStation 5. I have a deep love for motorsport and sim racing, and a lot of that first started thanks to this series way back in the late 90s. Today on Fix Spots on Video Games, we're taking a close look at Gran Turismo 7. We'll spend some time on the series' history, on GT7's game design and mechanics, and the future of Gran Turismo and sim racing in general. Is this series and this specific entry still relevant? Hint, hell yeah, but it's not free of criticism. Check out the timestamps in the descriptions if you want to view specific topics. This is gonna be a bit of a long one. Also, I got a bit of a cold. I hope you don't mind it too much. Otherwise, let's dive right in. Before we take on GT7, we're gonna turn back the dial to 1997, the year the world was treated to the phenomenon that is Gran Turismo for the very first time. Released on the PlayStation 1 by Poly Studio, now known as Polyphony Digital, the venture was spearheaded by Kazunori Yamauchi, if I pronounced that somewhat correctly, who still runs the team today. From the very beginning, Gran Turismo was a passion project. Development started in 1992, and here's a quote from Kazunori himself. "It took 5 years. In those 5 years, we could not see the end. I would wake up at work, go to sleep at work. It was getting cold, so I knew it must be winter. I estimate I was home only 4 days a year." This passion was felt in every facet of the game because the very first entry hit the ground running. Nothing came close to this in the 90s. For that time, the physics, the graphics and sound design were completely unmatched. The sheer amount of cars, almost 180 of them, 11 tracks with 21 layouts, the many different game modes, it all made Gran Turismo 1 feel huge. The game offered an arcade mode where you earned new cars and tracks by beating single-player races. To me, however, one of the biggest draws was the progression-based game design found in the simulator mode. This mode was much more nuanced and comprehensive than its counterpart. You started out with a single car and had to earn currency to obtain new ones. Money was given for winning races, but you weren't even allowed to try these unless you had the proper license. These licenses were awarded for beating small challenges, often as simple as driving a single corner. However, some of these were hard as shit and genuinely required you to have an understanding of racing technique. I both loved and hated these, as small kid Fig found a lot of these impossible. That damned Viper that would just start spinning when I touched the gas, why? But these challenges also made me better at the game. I couldn't just use the walls here to get by, I had to grasp the fundamentals to make it through. Going from I don't know what's going on and mastering a challenge was the absolute best feeling. Doing these unlocked new events to tackle, giving you a linear form of progression, but with some agency with what to tackle when. Combine this with buying faster and faster cars that you can tune and upgrade however you see fit, and the loop is pretty much complete. From hatchback to racing machine, with you deciding what to drive and where to drive it. On top of that, it had this incredibly unique aesthetic. Menu options in the simulator mode were laid out on a city map with the icons representing features. The laid-back music, also iconic, combined with the creative take on a basic menu gave Gran Turismo 1 a unique vibe, helping to set it apart further from other racing games. It hooked me hard, and I'm not the only one. By December of 2000, it had sold more than 10 million copies worldwide. With success like that, it's no wonder this was the beginning of a major gaming franchise. In 1999, the first successor was released, fittingly titled Gran Turismo 2. Honestly, looking back, Gran Turismo can be viewed as the definitive version of Gran Turismo on the PlayStation 1. Besides a few tweaks, the design philosophy and driving physics are very much the same. What set it apart though is the massive amount of content compared to the already bulky initial version. Instead of almost 180 cars, Gran Turismo has nearly 650 to pick from. Instead of 11 tracks, it now had 27, including all new dirt tracks. For the first time, it also came with real-life race tracks like Laguna Seca. It had more events, more races to attend. The entire thing was so massive, it had to be released on 2 separate discs. Gran Turismo 2 is something special, something worth visiting even a quarter decade later. When I was young, everyone knew what a Gran Turismo was, even though the words themselves were completely meaningless to young northern Dutchies. Of course, compared to the opposition on offer today, it's tough calling it the real driving simulator, but you have to see it through the same lens we had in 2000. It was the highest standard in console gaming. Racing games meant Gran Turismo. When Gran Turismo 3 hit the stores in 2001, expectations were high. Back then, however, a new generation of home consoles actually meant something. To say there is a clear difference between a PlayStation 1 and a PlayStation 2 game is a bit of an understatement. Even beyond graphical fidelity, the new system offered a bunch of opportunities that simply weren't available before. And we weren't disappointed. Even though the game had once again 180 cars instead of the mind-boggling 650, everything was brought to the next level. This was the first time that the physics could, for the most part, be called genuinely realistic. The cars looked beautiful, the sound was crisp, the setlist was a collection of absolute bangers, some of which shaped my musical taste. I love you to this day, Feeder. They brought in Formula 1 style cars. Open wheelers still make my train arrive to this very day, and seeing them rendered like this in 2001 was amazing. The variation in events was insane. Sure, you could do the 5-minute 3-lap races you were probably used to by now. However, the back end had these massive endurance races, for example, which could last for well over an hour. You had to take care of your tires, go for a pit stop if necessary. This really did feel like racing instead of an afternoon drive. You could use a specially developed steering wheel with Gran Turismo 3, and it even had force feedback. And that's in a time where most of us were still hitting the cross or the A button to accelerate. It ran at a perfect 60 frames per second. The AI, although still very dumb compared to today's context, was a step ahead of what was achieved before on the PlayStation 1. And the sales reflected this. Gran Turismo 3 sold 1 million copies in its first 3 days of release. By the end of the PlayStation 2 era, it had sold nearly 15 million copies, making it the best-selling game in the entire Gran Turismo franchise. Critics lauded it as well, calling it stunning and lifelike. Even today, if you just compare it graphically to other car-centered games on the same system, it just stands out. Whenever someone tells you that graphics don't matter, just show them some screenshots and the sale numbers from Gran Turismo 3. Gran Turismo 4 followed up in 2004. Admittedly, I have never personally played this one. I missed out on it and I couldn't get it to run on emulators later on. Still, nothing a bit of research can't help. Now the people I know that did play this title have fond memories of it. And no wonder, as GT4 is much like GT2 in the sense that it takes the previous entry as a firm base and just expands on it once again to dizzying heights. 180 cars? Let's do 700 this time. There's 57 different tracks to choose from, ranging from real-life locations such as Suzuka and the Le Mans circuit, to fictional tracks that have become classics by then, to entirely unique locations not featured before. Apparently, the Chinese, Japanese, and Korean versions of the game were bundled with a 212-page driving guide and lessons on the physics of racing. Besides the new additions to the usual simulator mode, the game also offered a new secondary mode called B-Spec. Here, you didn't actually drive the cars yourself, but had to guide an AI driver through a race. It's pretty much a precursor to modern-day motor racing manager games like F1 Manager 2024 or Motorsport Manager 3. Oh, and why not present it in Full HD this time around, as one of only 4 titles on the PlayStation 2 that could do that? If GT3 was groundbreaking, then GT4 shattered the very firmament. Looking back, it's no wonder this entry specifically is praised by so many. At 11.5 million copies sold, it was a commercial success as well. Now a series almost a decade into the making, the eyes were on the future once again, and it was a bit of a wait after 2004. The next mainline installment, Gran Turismo 5, launched in 2010 on the PlayStation 3, a good 4 years into the console's life cycle. Sure, we had Gran Turismo 5 Prologue and Gran Turismo HD Concept, but these were more like extended demos than full-length titles. I should also mention the excellent Gran Turismo PSP, released in 2009. This handheld version was most like the older titles in the gap between 2004 and 2010. I also feel like it really pushed its system, the PlayStation Portable, to its absolute limits. It didn't sell very well, unfortunately, but I think the PSP version is an absolute highlight of that catalog. When Gran Turismo 5 finally dropped, it had a lot of hype to live up to. Some new features definitely hit the mark, a total of over 1,000 different cars, 77 tracks, online racing with up to 16 players, and a bunch of collaborations with real-life brands. These collaborations were pretty cool and featured names a motorsport fan might recognize: NASCAR, Formula 1, the WRC, even Top Gear. Driving on that old test track was absolutely legendary. However, beside the good, there was also a bit of bad this time around. None of the previous entries were perfect experiences, but with Gran Turismo 5 it became very clear concessions had to be made this time around. For example, out of those 1,000 cars, 200 were marked as premium, while the remainder were denoted as standard. The 200 premium cars are incredibly well crafted for that time, with detailed interiors and higher amounts of polygons. The standard car, however, lacked that same level of detail. Most were imported from the 2004 entry, and although the models hold up in a vacuum, if you put them next to the premium models, it all just starts to fall apart a bit. The older titles never had this split in quality. Every car was as meticulously designed and crafted as the next one. The AI of your computer-controlled opponents was, even after 13 years of practice, still quite a mess. Mostly, they would just follow their own lines, seemingly oblivious to anything that happened around them. The car physics also held up only for as long as you kept it on the track. Crashing involves no visual or mechanical damage, very little spectacle, and the walls can sometimes even be used as shortcuts. Hitting other drivers makes the car suddenly feel and sound like a boat in water. There was a new track editor that in concept was really cool, but turned out to be incredibly restrictive, with the player having very little say in the specifics of custom circuits. I wouldn't say Gran Turismo 5 was a disappointment, but after a 6-year hiatus between mainline titles on a next generation console, it certainly left a bunch of things on the table. Maybe it simply tried to do too much, and the massive scope of these games finally caught up with the developers. It still sold well, nearly 13 million copies, doing slightly better than its predecessor. In 2013, Gran Turismo 6 was the second full title that hit the PlayStation 3. Once again, even though it wasn't branded as such, it can be viewed as the definitive Gran Turismo for the PlayStation 3 era. More cars, more tracks, you know the deal by now. Gran Turismo 6 is also the version that included the GT Academy, and this was later dramatized in the Gran Turismo movie, which on a side note is a pretty good watch. Most of the problems from the previous entry have carried over as well, sadly. Still a bunch of shitty looking cars here, and the AI is just as dense as before. Besides taking away the used car dealership from the simulator mode, which meant every car was now available at all times. Everything is much the same. Even if GT5 wasn't perfect though, GT6 is at least better for simply being more. Sales did take a hit this time around, just over 5 million copies sold, less than half compared to Gran Turismo 5. If we set the PlayStation 3 era next to the previous two eras, the series was still incredibly successful, but was also showing a few flaws. An unwillingness to make changes to decade-old problems such as the AI and the crash models, and the ever-increasing scope getting further and further out of hand with each new title. With that in mind, it's no wonder Polyphony Digital decided to take the series in a slightly different direction. Gran Turismo Sport was released in 2017 for the PlayStation 4. This time around, the team decided to forego a numbered entry in an effort to set Sport apart from its predecessors. The focus was on online racing. Sure, something akin to a single-player career mode did still exist, but it was now a secondary feature. There were way fewer cars, totaling 338 after the many updates it had. Although that number is a lot less than before, all the cars are equally as detailed. No more second-rate models in this game. The many updates also spoke of a new design philosophy. This game was closer to a live service than a completed game when it was alive. A lot of the functions simply did not work if you weren't connected to the internet. Even now, after the service has closed down and GT Sport can only be enjoyed as a single-player experience, some features are still entirely absent. And that is if you've bought the game before January 1st of 2024, as the game has since been delisted from the PlayStation Store. GT Sport was more alive during its time than any entry before that. Sadly, the cost was that the game is now more dead than the titles that preceded it. But while it lasted, the online racing was really good. I have a bunch of fun memories of staying up way too late to do virtual battle in sport mode. Compared to other racing games, the competition in general just seemed more focused on good, clean racing instead of winning every single race in the first corner. The sportsmanship rating really helped with this too. Not only were you matched up with people who had similar racing skills as you were also grouped up with players who drove as cleanly as you did. Playing this like a Formula 1 multiplayer lobby, smashing opponents and going wall to wall wasn't gonna fly here. Although the reviews were pretty critical in the early days, consensus seems to have improved over time after the many content updates. It sold well too, nearly 13 million copies. Gran Turismo Sport was a return to glory in my opinion, decreasing the scope and focusing more on less to make sure the quality is high all around. It definitely still had some problems that the old titles did and created some new ones with the always online approach. Yet, I really enjoyed my time with this. But I was starting to look forward, just like the rest of the community, to the next numbered entry. Gran Turismo 7 was released in 2022. 1 year later, virtual reality was added for all game modes via a free update. Today, in 2025, the game is still very much alive. It has a strong player base and is regularly updated with new content. Mostly new cars, but also new tracks and events have been added in the past. First things first, the physics are unmatched. GT Sport was already insanely detailed, but it's even more refined in this iteration. Cars have weight and the cornering is fantastic. I cannot emphasize how much it feels like actual driving and racing. It makes the series tagline feel deserved, no longer an ambition, but a true promise. Cars can be tuned and messed with to your liking, allowing you to alter its driving characteristics. The amounts of sliders and numbers to mess around with is staggering as the system is fairly deep. I like how changing these has a tangible effect on the car, making one that's undrivable to you initially suddenly manageable. The amount of settings are a bit mind-numbing if you have no clue what they all mean. And although the game thankfully gives you a bunch of pointers on what to change for what effect, it wisely chooses to remove tuning altogether from online racing, so having good setup knowledge is not gonna help you there. It evens out the playing field. I like the tire and the fuel simulation, allowing races to include pit stops again. You can mess around with fuel maps, driving assists like traction control, or up the downforce in a little menu that's available during racing. You also have access to a radar that warns you of nearby opponents and a classic minimap of the given circuit. There's a rain simulation as well, with dynamic changes in weather and drivability. Dry racing lines might appear with puddles and curbs becoming danger zones. Some other titles might have done it a bit grander, but the system works beautifully as is. Night races are available too, with the game able to render a full day and night cycle. The twilight between light and dark is absolutely mesmerizing and gives another thing to adapt to during races, especially when time is artificially accelerated. And of course, unlike the laser-focused GT Sport, GT7 has once again gone for variety. There are so many different cars in this game, 546 of them by the 1st of September 2025, and they all feel entirely different. The premium split that existed in Gran Turismo 5 and 6 is gone too. They all look and drive equally fantastic. A bunch of cars are not so much intended for sport as for just cruising around. Still, don't let that stop you from tearing down the Nürburgring anyway. The variety means that every drive feels unique. If you master a track in one car, driving it in a different one is going to be an entirely new experience to conquer. It's hard to get bored if you can drive an F1 car one moment, a 90s supercar the next, and then take a modern hatchback for a spin. This was always Gran Turismo's greatest strength, but VR adds another layer to that. The moment-to-moment driving just can't be beat. Once you're in a car, just thinking about your lines and driving a decent race, the game is at its absolute finest. Of course, Gran Turismo is more than a sandbox simulator. It's also a game. The many game modes and features that were available in previous entries have made a return. Stylistically, the menus have the same charm as they used to, with icons overlaid on a city map. Quick note on the menus, it's all just so stylish. Even without the jazz music, which I had to turn off for recording footage, the visuals and tones are so jazzy themselves. It's still good to navigate and look at, even without the music. It also really helps that the PlayStation 5 is a quick machine, making wait times nearly non-existent between screens. I always adored the style, and honestly, I feel kinda nostalgic towards it. Just looking at this menu, it can only be one series you're looking at. Great stuff. Back to the game modes. The single player game modes vary between events, missions, licenses, and track experiences. These are in turn unlocked by completing various menus at the cafe section. These menus serve as the core linear progression that serves as Gran Turismo 7's campaign. A lot of criticism has been thrown at this design choice, and I promise you we will get to all the juicy criticisms later on, but for now I just want to explain the basics and put it into context versus the other games in the series. The menus can be viewed as a set of tasks that the player must complete before advancing to the next set. You start off collecting hatchbacks, then you're invited to do some racing, you start doing licenses, and after that you enter a championship race or a mission, and so on and so on. Surfing up the many game modes like this means you're thrown quite gently into the deep waters that is Gran Turismo 7. You unlock new tracks, free cars, new events, all kinds of stuff gradually. Bit by bit. Sure, this might be frustrating if you wish to dive into the deep end from the get-go, but I've always liked the fact that Gran Turismo kind of backs you to master the basics before moving on to the next thing. Compared to the original games, the essence is still very much the same. It's basically the same game, just brought up to modern standards. This can either be viewed as stubbornness and an unwillingness to change, but Also, as the developers being very sure to take GT7 back to its roots, to focus on those elements that made the previous games shine, instead of trying to break new ground and potentially missing the mark. As mentioned before, completing menus unlocks new content. The heart of it all is the single-player races. Most locations have a bunch of different layouts with different events set up for the player to compete in. Often, you're forced to pick a specific car or at least choose one that is limited in capabilities so it can, sort of, compete with the other opponents in a race. One serious weak point is the staleness that seeps in with the mandatory races. They're often the same, set up as short sprints involving no pit stops, no strategy, no tire or fuel management. There are no qualifications. You always start at the back of the grid. All starts are rolling starts, never from a standstill. The biggest issue with this design choice has to be mentioned up front. The player can only win races in single player if they drive an overpowered car. Drive something similar to your opponents, as is expected with motorsport, and you'll always be on the back foot. Furthermore, because the player is motivated to win these races to continue onto the next menu, winning becomes all that matters. Once the going gets tough, you do stupid moves like smashing into your opponents, cutting corners, or overdriving the car just to give yourself the biggest chance of completing the task. And that is such a bad habit to instill in budding drivers, because if you take that mentality to online racing, you're gonna have a really bad time. Motor racing is about the sport, about carrying on despite any setbacks, about doing your best to extract everything from yourself that you had to give. Winning comes secondary, and although the online mode constantly tries to hammer this point, the single player mode rarely enforces this mindset on the player. Having made that point, let's discuss the other game modes. The license system is back. If you're unfamiliar, these are set up as short challenges that are graded with a bronze, silver, or gold reward. They start off quite simple, say accelerating and braking in a straight line or taking a single turn, but increase in difficulty the further you get, ending with doing entire laps around the circuit. Gran Turismo never asks for more than to get bronze on these challenges, which only requires a basic understanding of the fundamentals of driving. The option to excel is available though, and getting gold on every challenge is the best way to get better at racing, I think. They'll seem impossible on your first go, but as you chip away at them, getting closer and closer to the target time, you'll need to fully understand the car's behavior and the track's characteristics to make it through. Thankfully, Gran Turismo offers you a lot of material to help you get there during these challenges. Written explanations, videos from any angle you'd like showing the goal time run, with full telemetry. Hell, you can even have a ghost of the goal time run visible while you're out there on the track to see what it's doing differently. This ghost can even be set to your best attempt, the setting I prefer. It'll show you getting faster and faster, which is nice, but I also find myself much more motivated to try and beat my own time. Each run feeling like I can do something to improve and then see my previous ghost disappear in the mirrors when my plan works out. It just feels better to win 100 times before beating a license challenge than losing 100 times before you beat the final time just once. To me at least. Missions function much like license tests, in the sense that you're still graded for your performance, but the challenges are much more varied and fun-themed than the almost dry license tests. Drifting or racing in a cup of wacky cars, overtaking a bunch of cars in a given time frame, that sort of stuff. There's also the circuit experiences. These are available for every single track and once again great players. This time for completing sections of a track and then ending with a full lap. These are very handy if you're looking to get quick someplace specific. If you like bite-sized challenges, GT7 offers you so many options. And again, you're enticed to do these over and over again to get those gold rewards. Gold rewards means more money is awarded, but claiming gold on every couple of tests means getting a car, and they're often really good. Doing the license tests and the missions means free, useful cars and a bunch of money to spend, while also giving you the skills to excel in the other parts of the game. View them as tutorials or challenge modes, both kind of fit the bill. Compared to the single player races, these modes at the very least reward you for clean, fast driving and punish you for doing the aforementioned stupid moves. And you'll definitely need these skills if you wish to dive into the game's other major game mode, the online racing. Online racing is, surprise, surprise, done a little different than you might have seen in other racing titles. It's split up into two modes, a competitive sport mode and a more laid-back multiplayer mode, where you faff about to your heart's content. Sport mode is where the real fun is at, however. Here you go up or down in rank based on your performances, facing other people of a similar skill level. The sportsmanship rating has also made a return, meaning that, generally speaking, you're also matched with those who try to stay out of trouble as much as you do. I have never found any game experience as engaging as driving similarly skilled opponents in Gran Turismo 7 VR. Period. If you're even half as competitive as I am, your heart will be racing when you realize a podium, maybe even a win is in sight. It'll drop like a stone too, once you've been it, fully on your own accord. Racing real people is something else entirely compared to the computer-controlled opponents, even if the AI is good, and in GT7's case, most of the AI really isn't. Let's move on to sport mode's quirks. Instead of something like Assetto Corsa or Mario Kart, I don't know, man, I haven't played a bunch of online races before this one. Unlike those, you can't just pick a new online race every few minutes. Instead, every week a set of free races is made available in sport mode. Out of those, Group A is often a sort of joke race that won't affect your rank or sportsmanship rating. That leaves just two races, Group B and Group C. Group B is often a shorter sprint race, maybe 5 laps or so, while Group C races tend to be longer, often enforcing at least one pit stop. For an entire week, these two different races will be the only ones where you'll be able to advance in online progress. This system was pioneered in Gran Turismo Sport, and I'll admit, the first thought I had when I saw it was, man, that's so lame. I prefer other tracks than the ones available right now, and I won't see them for at least 7 days, maybe even more. I have totally changed my mind on this though. The game begs you once again to try and excel, to pick just one track, one car, and get better and better. Qualifying is done between races, while you're waiting in matchmaking or when you specifically want to do time trials. Your quickest time is set next to your opponents in a lobby to determine the starting positions. A faster time means starting at the front of the pack. Every millisecond you can scrape off in qualifying can perhaps mean another position ahead before the race even starts. Plus, you can take comfort in the fact that if they can't drive faster than you in clean air, they're gonna have a hard time being faster in the race. If you enjoy the sweat, I really do think that this is an online community worth praising. Sure, there always will be a bunch of idiots playing bumper cars trying to ruin someone's afternoon, but for the most part, a lot of the racing is clean, fair, competitive, and just really fun. If you can appreciate a sick pass on you instead of feeling like they took your balls when you get overtaken, you have the proper mindset to enjoy this mode. Hell, this entire channel started with me wanting to share some of those intense experiences, even though the channel has become a bit of a different beast with fixed thoughts on video games. Initially, it was just Gran Turismo 7 content that I couldn't help but share. Single player content can be enjoyed at your pace. You can make things as easy or as difficult as you want to. Multiplayer content asks you to shape up, and see if all that faffing about actually make you a superior driver. It's all here. Whether you're looking for a casual drive or want to feel the sweat on your brow, Gran Turismo 7 has got you covered. We should also discuss the additional features the game offers besides the game modes. For starters, there are 3 different stores to buy vehicles from. One functions as a premium brand dealership where you can buy a bunch of modern cars from the last 20 years or so. There's a used car salesman. It's stock changing day by day, enticing you to take a look at least once in a while. Finally, the last store has the absolute cream of the crop, offering incredibly rare and expensive vehicles. Just like the used car lot, the stock rotates every once in a while. There is so much variety and charm to be found here. I love the extra little details like the history lessons on the many cars and the virtual reality showroom. 2 different shops allow you to upgrade your cars. At the tuning shop, you can purchase all sorts of parts from tires to engines to gearboxes and weight reductions and everything in between. Tuning or detuning your cars becomes an important factor in succeeding at the single-player events. Also, it's just so much fun to turn something unassuming into an absolute beast. If you're looking to change your car's looks, you can do so at GT Auto. Spoilers, bumpers, and liveries can all be applied here. It also includes basic maintenance like oil changes and the car wash. I'm thankful for the customization options and the livery editor. A single car can look and feel completely different because of all these options. You'll also find a photo mode and a showcase option on the menu map. The photo mode is pretty self-explanatory. The showcase allows you to view the creative stuff other people have made using the various editors. That means a bunch of beautiful helmet, suit, and livery designs are available here, made by the community, that you can then download and apply at GT Auto. So, even if you're not interested in using these editors yourself, you can still drive around in style. I really like this feature. Having talked about the many features in game modes, let's dive into game design, analysis, and a bit of criticism. First off, the main campaign. As mentioned, the menu system is an improvement over the ancient design found in the PlayStation 1 era. It's a step up for Gran Turismo. Compared to the opposition, however, it's a little lackluster. For example, the F1 games give you a full career mode with season-long championships and race weekends that include qualifying sessions. Trying to get your team up there is just as enticing as becoming champion yourself. Assetto Corsa, Project Cars, and Dirt Rally do the same thing. All of these offer a more refined approach to the single-player campaign than Gran Turismo can muster. Then there's also games like Grid Legends that offer a full-blown story mode. Compared to all this, Gran Turismo feels a little outdated. The single-player racing events themselves, as mentioned before, can get pretty boring, with the player pretty much being forced to use overpowered cars to take the win. All of these have rolling starts, which is a bummer, as standing starts are actually available in Gran Turismo 7, but only in custom races. Custom races are a fantastic feature, allowing you to set up a race and adjusting things like the conditions, opponents, racing mechanics, the amount of laps, that sort of thing. In some cases you can even include the standing starts, but just not all the time for some strange reason. Still, no qualifying either, although you don't have to start all the way from the back if you don't want to. Custom races also allow you to turn on Sophie, Gran Turismo's advanced AI system. Racing against Sophie is 1,000 times more interesting than the normal, dull, bland computer-controlled opponents. For those not interested in the pressures of online racing, Sophie offers plenty of action and competence when it comes to wheel-to-wheel racing. You're even rewarded with prize money for these custom races, helping you progress along even when you're just having fun with the game the way you would like to. And money is one of the 2 marks of progression in Gran Turismo 7, speed being the other. If you get faster, your opponents will too. The challenge increases, forcing you to go even faster. This feeling exists so purely in racing games. Start out with a shitbox, end up going over 200 into a turn in some crazy high-tech race car. Money is the facilitator. More money means more and faster cars. Gran Turismo is a bit greedy when it comes to the price of a lot of these cars. Unlike past entries, the game includes microtransactions, allowing you to buy Gran Turismo money with real-life currency. And of course, when there's real-life money involved, the in-game experience is always going to suffer on the player's end, whether they choose to buy MTX or not. Cars are overpriced, but not only that, money is rewarded very sparingly, so much so that a lot of players simply choose to grind 2 or 3 different events doing the same thing over and over in a game that boasts so much diversity and variety. It's silly. What's beyond silly and more a little insidious is the loot box system. See, Gran Turismo 7 sometimes hands you these tickets which you can spend at the garage. Doing so brings up a roulette with 5 unique rewards, including money, cars, upgrades, and something that's called a brand invitation. Brand invitations allow you to purchase a set of special vehicles from a specific auto brand for a limited time. Otherwise, these vehicles are unavailable to you. These invitations are a huge hurdle if you're someone who's interested in collecting cars. They very rarely show up in the roulettes, the only chance to get them, and when they do, there's at least a 4 out of 5 chance that you're still going to get something useless like 5,000 Gran Turismo money or a new muffler for a car you don't even own. You might get lucky early on and get a brand invitation to Ferrari, only to realize you don't nearly have enough money to buy even one of the red bastards. Unless, you could be enticed to spend some real-life money on that virtual Ferrari. Combined with the rotating car stores, it's all a little bit shady this time around, and the only way to overcome this is to just grind more and hope the random number gods have some mercy on your soul. The licenses, missions, and circuit experiences are all fantastic. Like I said before, these give you external rewards like a bunch of money and free cars, but they also make you a better driver if you take these on. The Go system and all the material included is designed to help you get faster, and I've rarely seen racing simulators tutorialize its mechanics in such a detailed way. These are absolute highlights if you need a little something more than simply doing races all day. GT7 includes a bunch of tracks, including remakes of classics that have been around since the early days, like the iconic Trial Mountain and Deep Forest Raceway. There's also real-life tracks such as Formula 1 mainstays like Spa, Suzuka, and Monza, and absolute bangers like Mount Panorama, Brands Hatch, and Road Atlanta. All of them are rendered beautifully, and the alternative and reverse layouts are very much appreciated for the variety. Then there's the dirt and snow tracks. These add more variety, sure, but they're also the weakest link in the entire chain. Driving on anything but asphalt in this game feels loose, weightless, and floaty. Compared to the awesome renditions of regular circuits, the off-road tracks are absolute misses to me. They don't feel like rally stages or autocross events, instead just being generic off-road loops, even lacking the charm that other circuits have in their backgrounds. I advise to avoid them like the plague. Besides that, the always online approach that initially started with GT Sport is pretty much the same here. Most features will simply not work when playing offline. It also means that it has the same flow of updates with new content appearing every month or so. It's likely that the trade-off for the liveliness of the game today means a lesser product when the servers are inevitably shut down, just as happened with sports. It also seems likely that Polyphony Digital is going for a form of live service where only one Gran Turismo is supported at any given time. When a new entry releases, support for the old one will quickly be terminated. My first Gran Turismo, a recent free release, is pretty much a demo for the main game, even allowing you to carry over progress. And of course, we have to take a detailed look at its VR capabilities. Every game mode, all the licensed tests, single player races and online multiplayer is available in virtual reality. This is not some half-assed edition. Gran Turismo 7 is a genuine, full-fledged VR title. And driving a car in virtual reality in this game is completely and utterly the absolute shit. No game has ever made me feel the immersion that is provided here. Driving an open-wheeler feels downright terrifying, something I've never experienced on a flat screen before. These things really are insanely fast, and VR translates this feeling so much better. The ability to freely look around into mirrors and into corners is such a simple but incredibly useful feature. The sense of scale is unmatched. You can feel out distances much better. The crazy amount of elevation at some locations becomes much more visible. It's not just immersion, it actually helps with driving the car. Honestly, once you go VR, that's it. There's no going back. A flat screen will never do it for you ever again. Unless you puke your guts out at the thought of having a VR headset strapped to your skull, the experience is superior in every single way. And if you're going VR, you're also going to need a wheel and pedals. Anything with force feedback is good enough, and there are a few budget options available nowadays. Sure, the game allows you to drive in VR using a controller, but you'll never feel as immersed as you would holding a wheel. And let's admit it, you'll never be faster either. This experience has blown me away. I've experienced many VR titles before playing Gran Turismo 7, and I've already had that wow moment a couple of times before. That giddy sensation that a new realm of possibilities in gaming has finally been opened. GT7 gave me that feeling again. Just driving around in your car of choice, just enjoying the drive itself. It's the ideal of the real driving simulator in its purest form. The one issue I have with it is the blackout that occurs whenever you put your head somewhere the game doesn't want you to. It makes sense when you try to stick your neck through a closed window, but it's a little jarring when you're driving in a car that has a small cockpit like most open-wheelers. Moving your head ever so slightly will turn the screen black for a moment until you return to a neutral position, and this can be a bit jarring. Otherwise, it's perfect. This game is the very reason I wanted to own a PlayStation VR 2, and it hasn't disappointed, not one bit. All in all, this game is fantastic. The few issues can't take away from the pure joy that is to be had here. I can't recommend Gran Turismo 7 enough. If you have played it but never experienced virtual reality, I would advise you to jump back in. Give it another go. Getting your mind blown is rarely a bad thing. Thank you so much for watching. Like the show? Do let me know. Leave your thoughts below or subscribe for more content down the line. A like is also very much appreciated. Check out more episodes of Fixed Thoughts on Video Games on my channel. I dissect all sorts of VR games. Either way, it was good to have you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.